Sahana vavatu, Sahana bhunaktu, Saha viryam karavavai, Tejasvinavaditam astu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. May that one protect us both in our studies and throughout life. May that one nourish us. May we work together with great enthusiasm and energy. May our study lead us to freedom and illumination. May we not unnecessarily cavil with each other. Peace, peace, peace beyond all. So there are a few questions. I'll try and summarize what these questions are. One was in terms of humility. How easy is it for us to exhibit humility, or we may observe people who exhibit this wonderful quality, and yet how to return that in a similar way? I think that's the purport of one question. Of course, humility is one of the greatest virtues in spiritual development. And one thing I would say is it develops spontaneously. It is not something that has to be deliberately cultivated necessarily. If we can get something by effect rather than by effort, it's a much easier way. It's a much better way. So we can explore that. Another question was brought up about how our response is to various objects. For example, crystals, metals, and so on. Is there really anything to any science, if you will, or any spiritual merit behind, relating to these things and using these things? That's how I understand the second question. And then there's another question in text: how to deal with sufferings. These are all very profound questions, I suppose. So shortly, within a few weeks, I suppose, we will have concluded our Ramayana, the story of Rama. And I was thinking yesterday how to continue Saturday mornings on a similar theme. And one of the most profound Indian scriptures will be the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam is a vast text, and it is written in a story form. It comes under the category of Purana, that is, conveying deep ideas in a story form that is easy for children and adults to at least remember and understand. There's a beautiful episode in this Bhagavatam, which is to do with what is called Bhragu's footprint. Bhragu is a great sage. And the story goes like this, that there were arrangements made for a very big ceremony, a yajna. How do we develop spirituality? Love first, and after that, prayer. Now, I'm quoting a response by Ramakrishna. Love has to be developed and then prayer, not the other way around, interestingly enough. And yet, how do we develop love? It's through prayer. So there's kind of a circular thing going on, that if we cannot love properly, then we cannot pray. But yet, how to develop love, we need to pray for it. And in order to pray, there must be some close sentiment, because prayer can be of different kinds. It can be a prayer that asks for things, petitional prayer, as we call it. But the most profound prayers will be found in praise. So, for example, if you take, for example, the most profound part of Christian liturgy, it's all taken from the Psalms. Because Christianity, of course, is really a continuation, or seem to be a continuation, of Judaism. And in Judaism, the Psalms are very, very important. Why are they important? because they are expressions from the heart. And many of them are to do with praise. And Christianity takes these psalms and orientates them toward Christ. That's the only difference. But they are highly meditative. In the Vedas, for example, the section called Samhitas, Samhita is about also praise. And what stimulates a sense of praise? Well, that would be seeing the world in a different way, where our mouths open and our eyes open in a state of wonder. If you bother to look every morning, let us say, at the sunrise or currently the blue skies, if you're fortunate enough to open your eyes in a location where mountains are there, or rivers or forests or anything that inspires, spontaneously inspires the inner beauty, the sense of aesthetics in man, then you'll get this sense of wonder. And throughout the whole of Europe, massive cathedrals with huge spires are created to try and convey the sense of marvel and wonder and inspire the human soul. And when the inner human soul is inspired, a feeling comes, and you might say it's akin to love. Love has the sense of attraction, the sense of an inner joy, the sense of an indescribable inner feeling which we cannot put on paper nor can we analyze. But we all know what it is. And the most supreme, highest form of love will be unconditional love, that is, a love that has, in Swami Vivekananda's words, has no reward, no rival, and no fear in it. Now, we love God, and I'm repeating this many times, because that supreme being, that divine, infinite, invisible, is lovable. And while normally we cannot see, with the physical eyes anyway, the inner eyes we can see. But with the physical eyes, how we relate to the world, we don't see it, but we see the effects of it. We don't see the creator, we see the creation. And it is through the creation that we see the creator. And so you can't say, well, when we worship a deity, that only one form or another form is, because millions, every form is that form. Every form is his form or her form. We can put an agenda for convenience sake. Every form is that form, his form. Everywhere we look, every sound that we hear, every pressure we feel, all of it we can register to the divine account if we have an eye to do that. And that spontaneously evokes a feeling of love. And in this feeling of love, there is a sense of humility inherently built into it, because the love is for something greater than the human condition, something greater than our small ego reference point. So there's a beautiful story in the Bhagavad Gita, because they were holding this yajna, this festival and this ceremony. They were doing it on the bank of a sacred river, the Saraswati. Saraswati River we don't find today, we only find the river bed. And that's only located because we have the advantage of satellite photography. So an ancient river that probably dried up maybe in about 5,000 years ago, probably, or more. And so all the sages and seers there, they came from far and wide, says the Bhagavatam. And in the course of their discussions, then this question arose: who is the greatest among the various forms of deities that we worship, namely threefold, because the greatest deities we know are Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshwara or Shiva. That's how it's described in Indian or Hindu language or Hindu concepts. These Hindu concepts are no different from any Trinitarian concept, because In Christianity, for example, you will have the Creator, you'll have God the Father, you'll have the Son, that is the Word, the Logos, the one that sustains everything. And then you have the Spirit. And so we find a great, great similarity. Now, what about those non-Trinitarian systems? Well, these non-Trinitarian systems will have similar concepts because they'll put them in terms of properties or qualities. That there is a creator, okay. That this creator sustains, that we have to align our will to that of the creator, says Islam. And also that there is an origin of life, something that is giving us life. So we have the same thing, but not personalized. So the question is, who is greater among these things? Don't forget, it's only a story. So not being able to settle it amongst themselves through argument and discussion and so on and merits, they appointed Bhrigu, who was a great sage, and he was also Brahma's son, therefore likely to have some kind of bias. And so he approaches his father, Brahma, and in approaching him, he bows down. He doesn't bow down. He doesn't greet him. He shows a little bit of disrespect. And he doesn't show any sign whatsoever of respect. And he notices that his father, Brahma, is clearly very angry with his son for this treatment. But he restrains himself and calms down. It's the story of creation, how creation erupts. And then after that, like a volcano, everything, all the lava settles. And then Bhrigu, he goes up to Kailash. And Kailash, traditionally, that's where Shiva is sitting. And Shiva is called the great god Mahadeva. And Mahadeva is very happy to see him. He comes, he embraces Bhrigu. But Bhrigu immediately rebuffs him. And on the contrary, instead of greeting him in kind, he starts abusing him, calling him all kinds of names and what have you, cursing him and what have you. Mahadeva becomes very angry. He becomes angry at his words and is about to strike Bhrigu with his trident. And with great effort, naturally, his wife, Devi Parvati, calms him down. And then Bhrigu goes to Vaikuntha, where traditionally Vishnu is supposed to have his abode. Don't forget, this Bhagavatam is a Vaishnavite text. So naturally, Vishnu is going to win. I'll tell you that in advance. And then Vishnu was, of course, resting with his head on Lakshmi's lap. And Bhrigu goes straight to Vishnu and kicks him on the chest. And in spite of this, there's no change in Vishnu's demeanor. So he immediately gets up and heartily welcomes the sage. And he tells him, of all the sages, I hope your long journey was comfortable. And we're extremely sorry we didn't know you were coming. We couldn't prepare nicely for you. And so therefore, we couldn't make all the proper arrangements. However, stroking Bhrigu's feet, the devotee is supposed to stroke the Lord's feet. The Lord stroking his feet. And Vishnu continues, I hope your tender foot wasn't hurt by my hard chest when you kicked. Please pardon us for these lapses of not preparing for you. Your footprint will ever remain installed on my chest out of love. And so this quest to find the greatest of all the deities comes to an end in the story. And Sage Bhrigu has his answer. And so he's extremely happy at the sweet words and cordiality of Vishnu. He's greatly moved to the point where he has to check the tears rolling down his cheeks. And he goes back to the place of the Yajna where all this festival is taking place. And the assembled sages there. And he boldly says, Vishnu is indeed the greatest of these three deities. Great ones say that he is the supreme goal of the sages who do not exploit others, who are at peace with all, who have unwavering equanimity of mind, and who own no possessions and are endowed with universal benevolence. Now, it's only a story. We're not saying Vishnu is better or Christ is better or any other form is better. But you see, Vishnu is the one that sustains it. And if you take all these components that make up the world, known as gunas, we find these evolutionary forces as sattva, rajas, and tamas. And when we take this Trinitarian point of view, then Brahma clearly projects, and the projection is characteristic of rajas. And Shiva is a dissolver, so clearly tamas is there. And we can see this in their behavioral characteristics in the story. But Vishnu is sattva. And really, these are not three separate things. This is one particular expression of the divine, and all of these are necessary. So Vishnu simply means the one that is pervading everywhere. That supreme being that pervades everywhere, call this what you will, and manifests itself and enters into it and sustains the life. This naturally, when we really appreciate it, evokes a feeling of love. And where do we get this love? Why does Bhrigu break out into tears? It's because he's never come across such love before, and along with the love has come humility. So by loving others, in other words, by loving the divinity within others, we forget about ourselves, and therefore humility becomes an effect of love, and not necessary to cultivate it. However, another point of view might be this: if you really want to cultivate it, we have to emulate what all these great saints and sages are doing. And I mentioned Ramakrishna, and Ramakrishna gives us this wonderful example of humility. He goes to Rasik's house. Rasik is of the very lowest caste. And Ramakrishna is a Brahmin, the very highest caste. And in the dead of night, knowing that Rasik will object, he goes and cleans all the latrines himself in the dead of night and dries it with his long hair and so on. What a wonderful, wonderful example of humility. Of course, we have the same example, the example of Vivekananda, almost toward the end of his life, and he wants to feed Nivedita. And Nivedita is saying, I should be doing this for you. And Vivekananda says, Jesus washed the feet of his disciples. And Nivedita recalls, I nearly blurted out, yes, but that was toward the end. And she restrained herself. So the humility comes from this diminishing of this ego. And in the bhakti yoga, where there's a devotee, the vast majority of people will be following this path. It is the love of this supreme lover which immediately makes your own individual self with all your petty problems and so on and so forth diminish to nothing. And in doing this, part of this love that we're offering is forbearance. So how do we deal with sufferings? We deal with sufferings by shifting our perspective, seeing things in a different light. But what cannot be cured has to be endured. And the greatest examples of the sufferings are the greatest people who take the sufferings and take it sometimes voluntarily. Actually, a holy person will take it voluntarily out of love. Again, it's this love aspect. Rather than you suffer, let me suffer in your stead. At the brink of death, let me jump into the fire myself and save you. So you can see in Christianity that the greatest example of love is the exhibition of compassion. We find this actually in the life of Buddha and Buddhism, but in Christianity, see, no greater love doth a man have than to give up his life. Give your life up for others. Why not? You see, we only have this small life, and it is small. And when you take this small life and put things in perspective, there are a number of different ways of viewing what we call life and our reality. This life is just a few moments. Now, you see, if you think that you are the body, then you have to take this seriously to say, we are but a few pounds of ashes, that's all. Let's say 2 kgs of ashes at the end of the day. When everything, all the cremation is gone, that's all we have left, nothing else. It's worthwhile paying attention to that. There was the oldest mummified person that we know of, I think, something like over 2,000 years old. I think they call him the Iceman. And we see how everything is almost intact. And we can see that although the body has deteriorated and so on and so forth, at one point or other, this person may have been a hunter-gatherer climbing over the mountains, living a life, earning a living, carrying medicinal herbs with him. It's a wonderful study in the knowledge that people had in those days. And so, what are we? If you consider ourselves the bodily existence, then this essentially is mixing up the seer with the seen, and we call this egoism. And this egoism has to be put in perspective. Now I'm saying egoism, not ego. Ego is a necessary thing. A sense of individual identity is necessary. But to identify yourself with a physical or a psychophysical existence is a mistake, and most of us are suffering from it. So there are two ways of dealing with this. One is to see and serve the divine in everyone, putting yourself second place, being content with eating the crumbs or the leftovers and offering the food to others in a kind of analogous way. What is in contrast to that will be eating the food myself and giving the crumbs and the leftovers to others. You reverse it, having a genuine sense of not just social conscience, but something much more profound and deeper than this. Seeing the divinity, feeling the divinity in the other, a spontaneous elimination occurs because the other person's interest is the priority. Then the other way of dealing with it is to understand that there is a divine flow of grace, energetic grace that flows through all bodies, through all things that move and things that do not move also. And so we see it manifests in all hands, all heads, all eyes, and all includes this psychophysical all as well. This is how we deal with this egoism. And when we deal with it, immediately humility comes as a result. So we could cultivate humility by deliberately doing what Ramakrishna does. But in order to do that, we have to put things in perspective and say, there is the divine, and I'm serving this divine. In Ramakrishna's case, he was probably not only serving that, but he was also himself demonstrating to us all how it should be done, just as Jesus preparing to wash and actually washing all the feet of his disciples. This is the Jesus that all Christians worship, and see how humble he is. So I am nothing, you see, that's the point. Ramakrishna in his own life would have said, see, oh, you praise me, this and that and the other. No, I am even less than a worm, you see. This great person saying this. So we have to cultivate this quality either directly or indirectly, and both probably. So that's how we would do it. Dealing with sufferings again, this great quality of titiksha, we call it, which is forbearance. It's one of the 6 treasures, so called, of a devotee. We have to cultivate discernment, cultivating vairagya, renunciation, cultivating a thirst for truth or a thirst for God. And in amongst the 6 treasures, we find among them concentration and faith and many things, and sustaining a persistence that sustains what you've gained, as it were. All of these kinds of things, and contentment, and all of the. And one of the great qualities that we see there, one of the treasures, titiksha, forbearance. Forbearance, and one close to it will be faith. If we have faith that there is an optimism behind somebody who has faith, an optimism that says, all things are well and all things will be well. I often quote Julian of Norwich like this, you see, and all will be well and all will be, and all manner of things shall be well. What a wonderfully positive attitude. Now, the forgetfulness of the body is easy, by the way, if it's physical suffering. But then, of course, most of us are suffering from mental suffering. And to deal with things from the point of view of mental suffering, we have to change our thinking. We have to revalue everything, because mental suffering comes from this duality that says, I am here on one side, and there are other people or places or events on the other side. And in that context, I then have to go and deal with this. Unaided, alone. Well, that's not true. Philosophically speaking, from the Vedanta point of view, we are outside that circle of experience. We are this true Atman. And we can assert it. We can repeat with true conviction, based on all the metaphysics that we read and study. I am the immortal. Water cannot wet me, fire cannot burn me, Krishna's sayings and so on. I am the unchanging, I am the undivided, I am the invisible divine, I am the infinite invisible. I am that I am. I am that being. And we do that by withdrawing from all our petty, small circle of egoism, withdrawing into a place of poise within. Everybody can do this, because every experience requires a perceiver and something that is perceived, and of course the process of knowledge. And when we withdraw from that into the place of the invisible witness, the seer, and stand there beaming, then the whole thing changes. The whole valuation changes. And again, the beauty about seeing the world as it really is. It's not an actual world. It's not an actual world. It's an apparitional world. And we've fallen into the trap of thinking that it is serious. But you see, all this comes under Maya. It's not illusion. Don't make the mistake of saying it's illusion. No, it's real enough, there's no doubt. I won't suffer if it's not real. Yes, it's real, but it's ephemeral. It comes, it goes. And these situations are designed so sufficiently, if you will, so that I can take the opportunity of being creative, finding creative solutions to this, and putting it in the right context, valuing people as the Lord himself dressed up, valuing events as the Lord's grace flowing, as a scene, valuing places and situations as the Lord's covering of space, You see, when we do the arti, people ask, what's the significance of the arti? We offer so many things. This evening we'll be doing it here. So first of all, we're offering all the elements which are nothing more than manifested divine graces, coming out as radiation or fire, photons, light. We offer that. Five lamps, typically, the 5 lamps representing the 5 senses. And then and the five elements which are there, subtle elements which are there. And then, of course, we're offering water, because there's a fluidity there. Electrical currents are all flowing. But these are all divine. We can't register them just to the material world. There's no such thing as the material world. These are all divine. And then offering a cloth. What the cloth represents was to a dwelling place, space. Space is being offered because the Lord is clothed in space. So we offer a cloth, clothed in space. You are clothed in space. Of course, the Lord knows all of these things. It's not good. It's not news to the Lord, but it's our way of understanding, expressing a feeling. Lord, you are clothed in space. You are space. You are the fabric of space and time. And then we offer, of course, a flower, not only denoting our feeling of love, but also here's the earth with all its abundance. It is only you. Like hairs on a body, these flowers and plants and trees are yours. They're part of you. And then eventually, you see, the fan is being jowry, the fan is being waved. This is Vayu, this is air. Lord, you are distributed everywhere. All precious are yours, and all skins are yours that feel it. Everywhere, all of these are yours. Now, when you evaluate the world in this way, what becomes of sufferings? So, when you say how to deal with sufferings, is it your sufferings or the other person's sufferings? Now, we've talked about your sufferings. Let's talk about somebody else's sufferings. If we are able to shift our own position and have a truly loving disposition, then our very nature, our very outlook will transform the other person. It's called spiritual healing. Spiritual healing means I see in the other the perfection of divine. And as soon as I see that perfection without any blemishes, without any pain, without any sorrow, soon as I see that, that has a transformational effect. That perfection comes through. You put it in a funny way. Lord, you're dressed up in these forms. I'm a fool. I never saw it. Now I'm going to look carefully. There you are. You peel off every layer that you not only occupy, but you manifest. So let us look at that. Our human body, that's just an outer clothing, like a pillowcase, like a dress. You can change the dress, no doubt. And then as you go in, Lord, you are this spirit area called the mind. You have all these waves within you. And these waves are producing this body. Let us take it away and see what is there. Lord, you are the light of the intellect. I see this. You are the Mahat. You are the great one which is there, Mahat. You are the great being. You are the cosmic mind. And then, Lord, you are standing there full and free and perfect. What a fool, I thought that you had some difficulty, some physical difficulty. Look up a medical book. What is wrong with me? What is wrong with me? Every day you do it. No, you are a beaming, infinite, radiant entity that has the capacity to beam to others and transform people. By your presence, you can transform it. How do you think Jesus did it? He didn't see a leper. He saw the Lord of the universe, the Father in heaven. How do you think he saw a lame man? Not as a crooked thing with a broken leg. No, Lord of the universe. And the man got up and walked. Take up your bed and walk. Your faith has saved you. A dead man, oh, get up, arise, awake. There's wake up, you but sleepeth. Yeah, wake up. You think you're dead. Everyone thinks you're dead. No, you're dead, but sleeping. Your attitude is like that, and it's not a unique wiring. One person having done it, all people can do it. Everyone has the capacity to do it. So we have this transformation. We have this transformation capability within us to transform all the discord into harmony, to take all the raw material, rough as it is, and let it go through a divine manufacturing process so that what comes out at the end is pure glory. And we need to do it. We can do it right now. As we're sitting here, we can do it. Why not? Beam to the whole world. Truth and beauty and goodness and love and harmony, do it. Relieve other people's sufferings as well as your own, because all, you see, if you take a totalitarian point of view, a total point of view, all sufferings be removed. All is all inclusive. It includes every individual component, every atom of the universe. Billions and billions and billions, uncounted atoms are there. So this is how we deal with these two aspects, humility and suffering. Now, in terms of silver, I've mentioned the atomic world. Looking like silver, looking like gold, looking like wood, looking like trees and flowers and earth and so on and so forth. All of these are dancing atoms. And dancing atoms are not separate from the dancing Lord. We have many, many beautiful images about this. One striking image would be Nataraja, the dancing Lord Shiva, dancing everywhere. This is so wonderfully correlated and registered by the largest experimental laboratory in the world, regardless of the validity of the experiments or the usefulness of it or otherwise. We know that there's a whole new world that sits, as it were, below the surface, invisible to our eyes. Nobody has seen the electron. Everybody has seen the electron traces through cloud chambers. Nobody has seen the proton. Nobody has seen quarks. We're only seeing their energies. We're seeing how they behave. We're noticing their behaviors and the effects of their behaviors. There's a mysterious world underneath everything, but for us in Vedanta, it's not mysterious at all, because these are dancing fundamental elements which appear and disappear, and there's no permanence for it. This is called Maya. What is modern science studying is Maya, the appearance and disappearance of things. Matter, antimatter, gone, annihilated. Some energy borrowed from the future, incomprehensible to us who think that time is a linear thing. And the subatomic world is laughing at us, as it were, saying, "You're fools. You're thinking the world looks like that. Look at it more closely." Like looking at a picture or pixelated picture, and you hone down, you look at it very closely, and what you'll see is a bubbling area, fuzzy area. It makes no sense. Then when you come out, you see, oh, I see, it's all coordinated. This is how it looks. Which picture is true? Both are true, of course. But when you're looking at the detailed version of it, it becomes fuzzy. So this is the quantum world. I keep mentioning it. And the reason why I do that is because all these ideas of Maya and all these philosophical ideas, ancient ideas, have no validity unless they're corroborated by modern science. And modern science does it very well. Even though these people involved in the modern scientific research don't understand. Of course they don't. Maya is inscrutable. You're not meant to understand it. It is the world of appearance. It is created from Apparitional causation, that's all. And looks like energy, and looks like matter, and looks like concrete things, tables and chairs and bodies and trees and flowers and so on. And it is all there like a painting beheld before us for the aesthetic value of our appreciation. What a loving being does this. Here I am, let me display myself as flowers and trees and herbs, as insects, as tiny, tiny moving things. We cannot even gauge the wonderful scope of what we classify as living organisms. We cannot even classify the subatomic world of flashes here and there, and we cannot classify all the things that are going on in the vastness of space. It is way beyond our human comprehension. But where we come to know it is through cultivating spiritual life that leads to a meditative approach. And in meditation, we discover all of these things firsthand. We don't have to look through the telescope. We can find it within ourselves. So did I answer the question of Silva? Not really. So all of these atoms will combine to make these chemical elements that we register as silver, but all of these elements are made from stardust, from explosions of supernova that come to us. All of this is manufactured in stars, in the belly of stars. This was the discovery from Fred Hoyle and others. It wasn't manufactured at the beginning. There's a kind of crucible. You can imagine something like a crucible under intense heat, a furnace. And this furnace, once you take the dross away, will come across precious metals. Now, it doesn't make any sense if the outcome of this, such as silver, gold, and all these other minerals and metals, and even rocks, will have a certain vibration. There's no doubt. Every chemical has a vibration. There's no doubt. It's called a spectrum. And so, if you take, for example, a pendulum called radiesthesia, and you put it over a particular substance, you'll be able to distinguish one thing from another. No object can influence you. No object, no person, no place can influence you, because we're all in the commanding position. And these metals and substances are at our disposal for our use. It's another expression of divine love for us. And that's all I can say on the subject. How you react differently and so on and so forth to different substances and metals and so on and so forth. Well, you can register that. Some of it may be your imagination, and some of it may be, oh, okay, so, I like this and I don't like that. But what has it to do with spirituality? Nothing whatsoever. And we have to get away from this idea that an external object can in any way, or person, can in any way influence us. They cannot. If you are a practicing yogi, practicing the philosophy of Vedanta, regardless of your religious affiliation or otherwise, you are in a commanding position and the world is at your feet, and you are a transformer, and assert that and use it. Well,
Okay.
I hope I've made that quite clear.
Yeah, thank you, Swami. Thank you for your answer about sufferings. Yeah, thank you. I'm waiting for your answer about my other email. Yes.
Oh, I have to ask you questions on that. Okay.
Okay.
So I'll make a general comment on this. You see, every night we enter into a different world. We all know about it. It's a dream world. Some of these we remember and some of them we don't. And if dreams are remembered, they may be quite significant. Now, according to Freud, the unconscious mind is the royal road, or the dreams are the royal road to the unconscious. But you see, in interpreting the dream, we have to use a certain level of intuition, because all of us know the messages of dreams, or we used to know it. The Aboriginal people of Australia, the Native American Indians, the indigenous people of Africa, all of these will spontaneously know what a dream means. And biblically, everybody knew what the dreams meant, or they would call upon people who did. Jacob's ladder and so on and so forth. All of these are significant. Now, there are, of course, psychologists, for example, Carl Jung and Freud. They both saw the significance of dreams and understood that dreams are essentially taking certain impressions from the waking state and working on them. And there are different classifications of dreams. There are problem-solving dreams, there are wish-fulfilling dreams, all of these are there. But generally, Carl Jung went into the symbolism of these, and more than likely he says that when we dream of people, we're dreaming of our own sub-personalities, and they may be related to actual people, but it's more than likely not their problem, it's our problem related to those people. And so it gives us an insight into some of our inherent internal mental difficulties and how we relate to the things. But significantly, it also provides solutions. Because if you take it that the unconscious mind is actually the cosmic mind presenting itself, giving us a message, sorting out our problems lovingly, waking us up in the morning for stupid thinking, then if we take it in this way, then by analyzing the dream properly, we can find solutions there as well. Not only the problems, but the matching solutions will be there as well. So the way psychologists will do this is they'll do it by word associations and by gathering information, what the current events are around, around immediately prior to the dreaming. And so all that has to be gone into. We cannot say, "Oh, I dreamt of this, so it means that." Not necessarily. That's all I would say on that at the moment. All
Yes,
right.
Swami.
Yes.
I have one question, if you
Yes.
have time.
Yes. Yeah.
I would like to come back to what you said about nothing can influence us.
Yes.
I was wondering if we feel it does.
Well, let me qualify that. Yes, as long as you allow it, it will, of course.
Okay. So would that mean that we need to no, let me rephrase it. Would that come from our organ senses, or does it mean that there's not strength enough in us so that we allow it, or how does it work?
It comes back to who or what are you identifying with. If I'm identifying with my pristine self, the Atman, the self, the authentic self, the kingdom of heaven within. If that's where I'm identifying myself, nothing can touch me. So I have to cultivate that. And also what we call energy, whose energy is it? There's only one energy and one owner of it. That's the divine. All energy is divine energy.
Thank you, Swami.
We call it prana, of course, in yogic language. But cosmic prana is only one. And what we call energy, we're simply taking small sections of it, as it were, and using that. Well, our scope is much bigger than that. Somebody who has practiced literally, not this breathing, but pranayama, means controlling energy in themselves, will control energy everywhere. These are not my words. You'll find this in Raja Yoga, in Swami Vivekananda. If you control the prana here, you control the prana in the entire universe. Okay. And what stops us? Doubt about it. Coming back to, oh, I'm just this, but I'm just this, and I'm struggling, and people like me, people don't like me, and no, you see, you can shift their perspective completely and get out of a narrow, defined circle with I at the center. Get out of that and become the infinite. You are that already.
Okay, thank you, Swami.
Good to see
Thank
you.
you, Swami.
Thank you.
Thank you, Swami.
Thank you, Swami.
Thank you.